Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours. This is the show where we answer your general questions as they relate to media and event production. Today, 2 hours of general questions, so make sure you get your questions in and vote on them. All right, CJ, what's our first question?
Joaquin Matus from Imperial Valley, California. What are my options for RCP-type control services for the FS-HDR?
All right, Alex?
I forgot to turn my camera back on. I was sitting there waiting, just kind of working through it. There isn't really an RCP for that. Now, one of the things about the FS-HDR is that it does accept REST commands. And so what you can do is build something that's going to send REST commands. So you could theoretically use Companion or use other tools that could potentially send those REST signals back to the FS-HDR. So that's really what you want to look at. We actually built a whole interface that Chad Lafarge built an interface for the FS-HDR to do the kind of color correction that we need specifically. And so we do know that it is successful and it can control lots of FS-HDRs at one time. So definitely it is possible to build something, but there isn't anything that I know of that's already built.
All right, next question.
Paul Wallace from Hot Springs, Arkansas. How do you connect a Ubiquiti Unifi UACC-CM-RJ45-1G dongle to a Nighthawk M5 MR5100 5G mobile hotspot to a Ubiquiti UDM 16 power over Ethernet switch with 2 SFP ports and a UDM SE router for failover?
Go ahead, Alex.
Ball bearings. It's all about ball bearings. So... it's all about ball bearings these days. Everyone knows the Fletch reference. Anyway, so what I would do is we're talking about VLANs on Friday, and what I would do is bring that back up because we're going to have a whole bunch of people that know a lot about these routers that will be able to talk through that. But I think we're probably not going to be able to answer that one today. But come back on Friday with that question, and we should have people that can answer it. But ball bearings.
All right, next question.
Douglas Carmichael, what would you recommend for a portable professional headphone amp to travel with a MacBook Pro?
Alex?
The most cost-effective one is the IFI. IFI makes a couple of them. I don't have it within reach, but it's pretty good. I mean, it's a couple $100. Once you start talking about portable amps, these can get really expensive really fast. So the IFI ones in the sub $200 range or sub $250 range is probably the best ones. Once you really get serious, you're going to go into $600, $1,000, $2,000, $2,500 really, really fast. So those are the only ones I know that are very affordable.
Yeah, and also AudioQuest is another great company that makes the Dragonfly DACs. They have 3 in that series. The entry-level one is, I believe, under $200. They're all really good. The cool thing about their DACs is that they support high-res audio, so they'll support MQA as well. So if you're on Tidal and streaming the high-res plan there, that will work. They also work really well with high-impedance headphone. So, I mean, all the way from 80 ohms to 400 ohms if you've got high-end headphones, those will also work really well. Next question.
Bo Cordell from Charleston, South Carolina. CBS posted a behind-the-scenes video of their Nickelodeon coverage of the Super Bowl. What are your takeaways?
Go ahead, Courtney.
Well, it was kind of interesting. I did look at this video earlier. I don't know if we can show part of it here, but you can see they had the voice actors behind doing why that thing is there, but the voice actors, Tom Kinney and the guy who plays the starfish, you can see them in the lower corner here, had mocap suits on, so they're doing mocaps. I don't think the green screen really is doing anything here because he's not in front of it. They're doing, I think it looks like an RF, maybe Alex knows the type of mocap that they're using. It's, I don't think it's optical. I think it's, RF type mocap. And look at the control room here. Look at the number of monitors that you're going to need to cut that thing with. And this isn't, of course, the main control room. This is just the sub-control room that they're using to put their graphics over the top of what they're getting from CBS. So maybe they're just getting a portion of the feed from CBS after they've pre-selected or pre-switched everything. And they're just doing their overlays on top of that. But it's an interesting thing to look at, so you can find it on YouTube and on Instagram, apparently.
Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, there's a face tracker. I think they're using a phone-based one, and that I think they may be using the Unreal Engine. They have their own face tracker that is free and that you can use with the iPhone. And so I think that it links directly to to Unreal and allows you to do some basic face. And for this kind of thing, this is a perfect example. Where you're not trying to get every detail. You're putting on a cartoon character, and you just need to get basic motions. And if you're a little over animated, usually you'll get the emotions that you need. And so my guess is the phones that are in front of them, that's a head tracker. There's a head mount, and then what it's doing is just framing up the face, and then it's just simply tracking it. And what it does is it looks for your eyes and eyebrows and mouth and kind of just syncs up, and will do it relatively. You usually don't need even any tracking areas. My guess is, I don't know what they're using for the motion capture, but I'm going to guess Xsense. That's Xsense, I think, Xsense. That tracker doesn't require any markers, and so it may be what they're using is pretty popular. And again, it's not as high fidelity as a outside in something like Vicon or Natural Point or whatever, but it is something that can be effective for exactly what they're using it for. So my guess is, and it can do it in real time. So my guess is they're using Xsense with the Unreal Engine face tracker. I think. I kind of poo-pooed it, but I actually watched a little bit of the Nickelodeon record, and I think it's a great job. Like a really great job of really making it fun to watch for kids. And I think we had some responses when we were talking about it in the last time that folks had their kids watching them, and they just loved it. And these were like basically kids under 13, pretty much all the way down. They thought it was a lot of fun. So I think it was a good time. I love how they referred to Travis Kelce as Taylor Swift's boyfriend who can play football. So I thought that was good.
Courtney?
Oh, I was just going to mention the tracker that Alex mentioned. So he's covered it quite well.
Okay. Next question.
David Brady from New York, New York, working on a project that will require 3 or 4 HDMI projectors edge blended. What are the best output devices for modern Apple Silicon? My time is this space is antiquated with Matrox product.
Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, I think that what you want to look at is Resolume Arena. I think that's probably the first one. That's the first one that I would look at is Resolume. There's a couple aluminum, not aluminum, or aluminium, but it's aluminum. I can never say it right, but it's a company that makes another one that does that blending. And also, I believe that QLab has some tools that will allow you to do that. But the one that I see the one that I see that is relatively cost effective is Resolume Arena for doing those edge blends.
Next question.
Funstock Dorji from Dharamshala, India. Hi, panelists. I'm helping with typesetting a children's book in a Tibetan font. We're using a different color for each word. Any color that we should avoid to help people with reading partial vision loss? Thanks.
Alex?
Obviously, you want to look at contrast. Look at black and white contrast. So look at it black and white, and is it making sense? Other colors that are hard to read are ones that have a lot of warm colors in them. So reds and yellows, and oranges tend to be harder to read on a white page. So if that's what you're putting it depends on what you're putting it over. If it's dark, you've got a lot more options. But if it's a white page, be concerned about red, yellow, and orange. Those tend to be very difficult to read for most people.
Courtney?
And remember that a large portion of the male population are colorblind and have red, green, different types of color blindness. But as Alex said, check the grayscale values of those particular colors to make sure there's enough contrast between the two of them. If you need to see differentiation between the characters, or if the color is important in carrying some kind of meaning with the characters, you might just keep that in mind and have some other means of differentiating the characters other than color.
Next question.
Paul Wallace from Hot Springs, Arkansas. Last night, the entire basketball court for the NBA Celebrity Game was a fantastic LED palette. It was a giant step for sports graphics effects. Comments?
Nigel?
I always think when I see things like this of the quote from Jurassic Park, which I will read to you in a second. The scientist says, "You scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not you didn't stop to think if you should." And I wonder sometimes whether these things fall into they should. It's great for keeping people with low attention spans engaged in watching the television. I think it's reducing the quality of the game, but it's an all-star game, so maybe it doesn't matter. But sometimes too much.
CJ.
There's definitely a conversation to be had about restraint when we have these new technologies. I think it was a German company that had made the glass, and it was LED, and underneath they had the fans and the cooling and all that stuff. But then at the top, they did take the time to make sure that, hey, we're going to put little dots of grippiness, of grit, so that the players aren't slipping and falling. And then NBA, obviously they're trying to get, this is a test. If you're going to test a new technology, the All-Star Game's where you're going to do it. But the NBA executives were even lauding it, saying, well, when the players slide on this floor, they're not going to burn the way they do when they do it on Maplewood. So they're definitely starting to lay the track to on-ramp us as an audience to get used to this in these productions.
Alex.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting. I'm going to guess, and I don't know how they used it in the All-Star game and whether how much they used it during the game. So I think I saw a lot of examples of using things between the game, but I didn't see any gameplay. My guess is that they're not going to, at least at the beginning, they're not going to do a lot while you're watching the game. You're going to see something that's a faux court background. I think also it could just be a little bit confusing for the players. I do think it creates a lot of opportunities for pregame, postgame, halftime. It also creates opportunities for during the timeouts and during any kind of break. So during the breaks, there's a lot when you're at a basketball game. There's a lot of time, dead time that you don't see really on TV because they're in a commercial. So there's a lot of dead time there, and I think that they're probably looking more at that dead time than they are during the game. So I think the game will probably have very little graphics that are there. What I could see is them throwing like the score on in the center or something like that for a second or two, or leave it up. But I don't think they'll move a lot during the actual gameplay because I don't think they want to affect the game that way. But I do think that it's a great advertising opportunity for pre-show and halftime and breaks are a huge opportunity where you've got this huge amount of real estate that they're looking at going, hey, we could put Target there. So we could throw Target there and they'll pay for that. And so I think that that's probably where they're going with it. And I think that there could be some really interesting halftime shows that occur, using that area. One of the things we played with is what we call kinetic interaction, which is that we allow the audience, and we've done it in venues like this as well, allow the audience to interact with things on the court, and you could do all kinds of interesting things. We're letting the audience trying to push something back and forth on that screen by typing something on their app, or just literally just tapping a square on their inside of the Mavericks app. And they go to the halftime thing and they start tapping on it, and everyone's trying to push something back and forth, and they can use the screen as a game. And I think that you'd end up with a lot of interaction there. So I think that there's a lot of opportunities for innovation. I do think, again, that they probably won't use it heavily during gameplay, but they'll probably use it heavily, especially at halftime and pregame, and then potentially in some of the breaks.
CJ.
We see this now when you go to an arena to see the live event. They'll do it with projectors in the pregame and at halftime and things like that, where they're lighting up the court or they're lighting up the ice. I actually think this is going to be really cool for hockey. I know it's not as big of a sport as NBA, but when you put the ice over it, then you eliminate the slipping factor. The one interesting thing I noted when I was doing some research into the question, it's made it a very interesting situation for photographers, because now all of the sports pictures of the game, everyone's lit from below, and so they have this weird kind of spacey glow about them.
And Courtney.
Yeah, I don't know. I think anytime that you've got something that can almost fill your field of view for the players, let's say, that are on the floor, any kind of movement is going to throw your vestibular system off, and you're going to lose your balance. And especially in hockey, if you're looking down for the puck, you're having to look at the ice pretty much all the time. And any kind of motion on that is going to throw you off with your, especially if you're trying to skate and keep your balance and change direction. And if you see the the puck and the ice moving in different directions, it's going to really confuse. You won't be able to gauge the speed of the puck and the direction of the puck if something is moving underneath it. So I think, like Alex said, they're going to have to keep it stable during gameplay and only use it in non-competitive parts of the game itself. I did see some video. There's some video in there. I won't roll it, so we don't get a takedown, where they're putting graphics on. There are people on the court. I don't think this is regular gameplay. They're shooting a basket there. But, it's distracting enough, when the people, when they went to the clear backboards, the glass backboards, when you see the people behind with the little thunder sticks that are making a lot distracting moves to try and distract the free throws. Just imagine how distracting it would be if they're moving the field back and forth and changing the color and having flipping panels over. I think it's a gimmick.
Alex.
Yeah, and I think we have to remember also that for most of the teams in the NBA are not winning very often. Like, we always have to remember that there's a couple that are winning a lot, and the other ones are kind of left behind. And one of the things that's really important for those teams is interesting. It's actually oftentimes more fun to go to a basketball game at a team that doesn't win very often because they've gotten really good at entertaining the audience, because they got to make it something that's a lot of fun. So what you see, what we don't see during the commercials are cheerleaders running out there with guns that literally fire T-shirts deep into the audience or throw them. Some of the cheerleaders have pretty good arms, and they're throwing them up into the audience. But they also have guns that will fire them out. In baseball, the Pirates have hot dog guns. They fire hot dogs into the crowd, and because they don't win very often, so they have to entertain everybody. And so the thing is that a lot of this is trying to make it more of a party. The bigger problem about all these things that we didn't talk about is which side is up. There are people all the way around the thing, and you got to figure out every time, when you put anything on the, we talk about this a lot, when you put anything on the court, generally what will happen is the side with the cameras will be up. So the south side of typically the south side of the court is or what we call the south side of the court is the where they have concrete areas where they place all the cameras. And that typically is going to be where, my guess is that's going to be considered up. Now, sometimes they'll split down the middle, or they'll split side to side. But a lot of times when they want to do something they want to show on TV, they're going to say camera side is up, and so they it's for that camera so that they can get the PR out of it.
Nigel.
Now, when you could do this for cricket, I'll be interested.
Just a reminder that you can get your technical questions into Mukana and vote on them. We've got 2 hours of general questions with a great panel here with a lot of experience. So make sure you get those in. CJ, what's our next question?
Douglas Carmichael comes in with the next question. Has anyone had experience with a Vimeo OTT or similar pay-per-view streaming platforms? The use case would be a small venue expanding into streamed content, similar to the accidental model.
Alex.
Vimeo's OTT is probably the best. So if you're doing something as a third party that you want to have something that you're going to make available, they have standard OTT, but they'll build apps for you. I don't know how much it costs, but they'll build the app for you. They've got a bunch of templates that they can help you with. So it's relatively inexpensive compared to building your own app. So you can literally have your own app up on Apple TV or whatever and download it, and it's your app, branded as yours. You can mix live into that app as well as VODs. You can create playlists. You can create subscription services. So I think that really Vimeo has cornered that market. It seemed like a really outside market, and when they started doing it, a lot of us looked at them like, I don't understand what they're doing here. But they've really done a really good job of really carving that out of the industry and probably serving it better. There are other higher end solutions, but they're all dramatically more expensive than using Vimeo.
All right, next question.
And it's a host question from Alexander Knight in Port Coquitlam, BC, Canada. If I wanted to add a little light to my neck to get rid of the shadow, what's a small light that doesn't take up much space? I have a keyboard tray that slides out, so I need to mount it in a place that doesn't take up much space.
Help me out, Nigel.
I think the Luma light, I think it's the Edge Light 2 with the stand is quite a nice thing. But I'm an Elgato fan. I'm an Elgato fan because I don't have a lot of space in my office, and I'm a Stream Deck user, and it all integrates into the Stream Deck. And I find that a very flexible way to add bits and bobs of light everywhere.
Alex.
Yeah, one thing you might want to look at is the light pads from Roscoe. So we've seen these used by broadcasters in the past, and what they typically do, a lot of broadcasters, when you think about the broadcaster sitting here, that's a horrible color, hold on. When you look at the broadcaster sitting here like this, and they're looking at the camera here, a lot of times they have a monitor right here that's kind of up, it's kind of sitting down in front of them that they might be looking at to make that actually happen. And what we see is these Roscoe lights, they come in a lot of different configurations, and one is like a 3-inch by 12-inch. And the Roscoe light isn't really, it's not a whole bunch of little LEDs. What Roscoe did is they score the glass. So they score the glass, they put this little hex pattern in it so that it picks up light coming from the side and then diffuses it. And what that does is it creates really nice soft light that doesn't have any of the pixelization that you would see in an LED that looks up at you. And they're really, really thin. So they're really thin, they're really light. And you can get them in lots of configurations. They're 6 inches and 12 inches long and 18 inches long, and they're 3 inches wide and 6 inches wide. And so they're really nice to kind of put in little places where you do it. They were all the rage for a while. I think they're not used as much, but that scored glass, I think, works really, really well as this nice, soft diffuse. They're not super bright, but if you're looking for just that little bit of uplighting, putting them on either side or putting them across the, right up on top or wherever you need them, I think that might solve your problem.
Dare I ask, Alex, how much a Roscoe light costs these days?
Oh, they're not, I just looked at them. They're like, let's see. I don't even know if they might be out of, I don't actually see them new. Maybe I'm a custom. They have custom light pads. I see them. The one that you need, I see used for about $120. Let me see if maybe they've stopped making them, but we've seen them for years and years and years. Yeah, so we'll have to look. Maybe they didn't sell as well as they thought they would, but there are other people that make them. I don't remember them being particularly expensive. They were $100 to $200, to buy them. But do look for ones that have that scored glass, because that scored glass is going to be really. Roscoe probably got outgunned by China, at some point. But look for a scored glass solution that has its edge lighting on a scored glass. That's going to give you a relatively inexpensive light that has really, really nice diffuse lighting and generally is not very expensive.
All right. Courtney.
Well, if you want to talk inexpensive, this is what I kind of improvised. I got this from a suggestion by Andy Anatko on MacBreak Weekly many years ago. This little LED USB plug. It has a USB connector right here. You plug it into a USB extension, and then it lights up. And it's adjustable. It's touch. The back is touchscreen, so you can adjust the brightness. It's tungsten balanced, and it puts out a pretty good amount of direct light. But what I do is I put it on. I Velcro it to a pin, and I have a pencil holder right next to me here. And I take a piece of white polyethylene foam and reflect it off the foam into under my hat. Now it's going to take my camera a few minutes to adjust. But yeah, that's what I use to fill from underneath. And you can adjust the brightness on it, and I think they're about $2 a piece.
That's a great. By the way, Courtney, I always love your creative little solutions there that are cost effective. That's great. Next question.
Rob Chin from Indiana. Recommendations for audio capture when shooting 180 VR for the Vision Pro 360?
Alex?
Yeah, I think about ambisonic. So an ambisonic mic is probably what you want to do. The most cost-effective ambisonic mic is going to be the little Zoom. I think it's a H3, I believe, but it's a Zoom. Zoom makes a little ambisonic mic that you can record. A little bit of self-noise in there. So just note that you're going to have that there. As you go up, the next step up from there are really the Rode and the Sennheiser Ambio mic and the Rode ambisonic mic, and those are going to be in the $1,200 and $1,200 range. And then after that, the Octa mic from I don't want to say C Systems, but those you start to go up from there. So the last one that's really easy to manage in the field is the Ambio mic. When you go into the second order ambisonics, the cabling and everything else becomes something that's a little bit more difficult to use out when you're working. So I would probably stick with a first order, the Ambio, and we've used the Ambio in shows that we've done here when we're doing 5.1 surround. And been really happy with it. A little bit of noise, but still happy with it overall. I do find that a lot of the roads have a lot of self noise. But the Zoom is a good way to get as an introduction. I have one hidden back there somewhere, and so it's nice and portable. It's small. You don't have to tie it into anything, and it'll record on its own. And you can plug in your headphones and listen to it in binaural. So there are some advantages there. So that might, if you're just getting started, that might be the way to go. But I think that again, the nice thing about if you're shooting 180, the nice thing with an ambio mic is you can put it just behind the view plane. 360 is harder, but you can put it just behind the view plane and then you can get the information that you need.
Next question.
From the QR code, Jason San Augustin from San Diego says, I'm missing some files after I was multi-tracking audio from a mixer to an SD card. The drive states that the data in GB is there, but no files visible. What data recovery software services would you recommend?
Alex.
Nothing that's free. So you'll see ones that will say free, save your SD card, and that's almost guaranteed that it's going to be a problem. I can't remember the one that I've used. I'm going to try to. I couldn't quite get to it as fast. I'll let Courtney answer, and I'll see if I can find the one that I've had in the past.
Yeah, go ahead, Courtney.
Well, I haven't tried this, so I can't really recommend it. There's one called Wondershare that's designed for SD card recovery software. So it looks on there and it looks for file allocation table. And it doesn't say, I don't know what form,
by the way, that's the one
system it is. That's the one not to use. So
that's the one that I've used. No, that's the one I've used. I believe it should be.
Okay.
It should cost something. I think there.
It says free download right here, but that's for Windows. So make sure you have Windows.
I thought it was Wondershare. I thought that they had a. And it might, I think
there are a number of them that are designed specifically for recovery for photographers that look for photographic files in Reconstructor and audio files in Reconstructor.
And one note is it will come as a big mess. Like when it grabs onto this, there's no structure to it. It's just like a file of files. And some of the files used to be invisible, and they're no longer invisible. So
it depends on whether they were deleted or not. So if the file allocation table is intact but just tagged, in other words, tagged for deletion. Then you can easily recover them, everything except for the first character of each file name. And
I'm gonna correct it. The one that I've used in the past was from ProSoft, and it was Data Rescue 6. And there's a standard license for $79 and a professional license for $400. I don't know what the difference is. I'm pretty sure I got the $79 version, not the $400 version. But that's the one that I've used in the past. I know I found my order. So.
Yeah, and on a note, too, about recording to SD cards. I've recorded on many digital mixers, and I find a lot of the recording functionality, those drives have to be formatted as FAT32, which is a really old file system. It's always worthwhile to check the list of compatibility for SD cards. A lot of these companies will publish a list of qualified, tested ones, and I would try to stick with those if you can. And do check out that some of the recovery software options there, and hopefully that'll get it working again. CJ.
And an oldie but a goodie, if you happen to be a Mac user, Disk Warrior from Allsoft has gotten me out of jams a few times. When you're rebuilding directories or going for, I actually had Disk Warrior run on a physical spinning hard drive on the iMac G5 that's behind me here. It took 20 hours to recover the 5 gigabytes that were on that drive, but it did it. $120, Allsoft Disk Warrior.
Next question.
Next question down the road from me is Roberto Barro from Plymouth Meeting, Pennsylvania. I need a system that I can connect to our audio source to a speech-to-text app and do it live to a TV. We used WebCaptioner, a speech-to-text app, but it was sunset in October of 23. And he recommended live or real-time speech-to-text programs.
Go ahead, Alex.
It depends on the budget that you have. At the most basic, I know this will sound crazy, but we have found that Google Meet does an incredible job of its translation. Its captioning is really good, and we've literally cut the text out of it. So put it over something that was black, cut the text out of it, and threw it on a screen because that was free and very quick. Someone asked for it the day of the event. And so that was our kind of hack to get that done. Of course, as you go up from there, you can use the top end of it is the AI Media or EEG. It has a whole set of hardware and remote systems that will make that work, but you're probably talking thousands of dollars to make it work. So I know the two ends. I don't know a lot about the middle. So I don't know if we have anybody else, but those, typically when I work on larger projects, we're using the AI Media /EEG solutions. And what's nice about those is that, of course, they have a decoder. We're delivering you can use their AI tools to get the initial captioning, and then we can embed those onto the SDI signal or the HDMI signal, deliver it to somewhere else. And we have a lot of their hardware will let us move those captions up and down. Usually we want to put them across the top of the screen. We will do a lot of those things in like, imagine an LED wall outside, and people are sitting there, and we can put those captions across the top of the screen if we need to. But that's a more of a hardware solution. But I will say that you can use some of these things that do it. I don't know of a lot of ones that are in between that do that real-time solution. EEG, I will tell you that AI Media /EEG also has. They have a captioning system that runs for your phone. So you would download a phone app, and you're feeding the audio into their system, and it's delivering those captions to the phone app. So someone can actually look down at it. And of course, you can deliver those those tools back out to screen as well. So, but they're really if you're looking for a bulletproof solution, that's probably the bulletproof solution.
There you go. Next question.
Paul Wallace in Hot Springs, Arkansas. Will you watch tonight's WNBA NBA 3-point challenge using the LED floor we talked about? And what about an after-hours watch party to comment on the special effects of the floor?
Alex.
People are welcome to do something if they want to. I'm not really a basketball person. Like if I'm doing production on basketball, I see a lot of basketball when doing production. So, but I actually don't watch it that often myself.
Courtney.
And of course, they're going to try it out on the women, because more women are going to have to face this moving floor first. Maybe they don't have as many high-profile players that will sue them when they twist their ankle and put them out for the season because the floor moved when they were going to put their foot down. So it'll be an interesting thing to watch. Maybe I'll try and watch it when it is tonight, I guess.
Yeah.
I have to figure out what time it is. Fit it into my schedule. I'll set the VC up.
And Alex, you had another thought?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I will be very surprised if anything's moving while they're playing or shooting. I think that in their field of view, I think that it might be on the other side of the court. Could be something else. I don't think that they're going to do it while they're actually doing the shooting.
But there's people all over the court when they're
not in the 3-point. The 3-point challenge is not all over it. And by the way,
that's the only part they're going to use it on.
Yeah, I don't think that they're going to. I just want to say, by the way, if you haven't seen the clip of Caitlin Clark shooting the record-breaking shot, peak human. Like, that's all I got to say. Peak human being. Like, I'm not a big basketball person, so she has the record now of, I think it's 3,200 or some kind of really high number for women's collegiate basketball. Most number of points scored, over the 4 years that she was at Iowa State. Or I think Iowa State. Hopefully, it's not Iowa University. You get in real trouble when you go back and forth like that. So in Iowa, and to nail the nail in the coffin when she did she shot from the logo, not for 3 points. Like she did what she called it. She goes, of course I was going to do a logo shot, for the 3 points, and so she did a logo shot for her 3 points, and she's in Iowa. In her hometown, and the crowd just went berserk. And if you haven't seen that clip, it's just worth it. I mean, every once in a while you get to see a human being at their peak performance just nailing it. And even though I don't watch a lot of basketball, and I didn't know who she was until I saw this clip. She's evidently obviously a superstar right now in collegiate basketball. I guess they sell out every place that Iowa plays. Like it is like like everyone just wants to see, she's like the Michael Jordan of women's collegiate basketball right now. Everyone wants to see her play. And so anyway, if you haven't seen that clip, I would highly recommend it.
All right, next question.
A host question from Alexander Knight in Port Coquitlam, BC, Canada. Has anyone tested UVC support on the on iOS 17? Does an ATEM work on the iPhone 15 Pro?
Alex.
I don't think there's any UVC support. Are you trying to? I'm not sure what you're trying to do there.
trying to hook up an ATEM to because I thought they added it to. I know the iPad. I believe it sees it as a webcam. Does it not?
Well, so if you want to plug an iPhone into an ATEM, you can just simply do the HDMI to the ATEM will work just fine. I do that all the time when we're showing stuff. So it'll just mirror. So if you take the either Lightning or USB-C out of the phone and you plug it into the ATEM, it'll just show up as an HDMI source. Is that what you're trying to do?
Well, no, what I'm talking about is going USB-C from the ATEM to the iPhone so that I can open Zoom and use a professional camera. That doesn't work. Okay.
No, it works in the iPad, does not work in the iPhone yet. So it's, we think that there's no reason why they couldn't do that. And there's a whole bunch of excitement around what would happen if we could. But we have tested that and we have not been successful.
What do you think Apple's rationale was for not? Do you think it's just like an MVP? Like we're going to get it on the bigger screen first, and then
Well, it's been on the iPad for a while, so it's been working for a while on the iPad, and I think it's just time. They get one thing working. There's probably some subsystem in there that they got to make sure it works, and there's always things like how are you going to map all the video that comes in, and what is it going to look like, and how is it going to go to this, But there should be no technical reason why it can't handle that at this point. There could be some data path issues, but I don't think so. But it does see, I believe it does see external cameras. Just for whatever reason, it's not seeing the ATEM. But we do think that will happen.
All right, next question.
Dave Troutman from Edmonton, Canada. I noticed the Rolls MS111 is labeled as a mic switch and not a mute switch. Can I get a suggestion for a better mute option? Physical, not software.
Go ahead, Nigel.
So I actually have a Rolls 111 mic switch, and it works pretty well as a mute switch, I have to tell you. It's just very noisy unless you're very skilled at operating it. So I tend to use it as my emergency. There's a noise going on. I need to cut something off, and I don't care if I make any noise. I just hit that. It's easy to find than the whatever it is, 19 key that I have preset for Zoom. So I think mostly the software ones like the F19 or Stream Deck, I find a bit touchy, doesn't always get it. So the Rolls actually works pretty well for me if I need a sudden thing. I know people who have a lot more money to spend than the $60 will go for a Studio Technologies type device. And there are lots of other ones, but I think you really have to give the context of, does it need to be silent? And if it doesn't need to be silent, I find the Rolls pretty effective.
Go ahead, Courtney.
Well, even though they call it a mic switch, it's really just a mute switch because it's just a push-push switch, and the only input and out, it only has a female input and an XLR input and a male XLR output. So that's a choice, but the push-push is a mechanical switch, which makes it noisy. Another solution which, if you're using a mixer like I am, the Rodecaster Pro, all these digital mixers, most of them have a mute switch right down here at each channel, and that's an electronic mute switch. It mutes mutes your microphone completely, and you won't hear it because it does it digitally in the mixer itself. So if you have a digital mixer or even an analog mixer, a lot of them will have mute switches. All the Mackeys do on each individual channel. You can just hit that button on your mixer if your mixer is within view. My problem is it's underneath my mouse on an outrigger. It's a mess here. So I can't see it from where I am now in my chair. So that's the problem why I can't use mine on my Rodecaster Pro.
CJ.
I had used that Rolls switch when I in the fall, and I'm not as good as Bill at making it not make a lot of noise. The other thing that I found about it was that because I'm using a mix pre for noise assist, it would cut off the signal to the mix pre, and then the noise assist would have to re-engage every time that I unmuted. So Mickey helped me out and actually recommended that I go to one of the Korg Nano controllers and then set my levels using the gain pot at the top, and then use the fader to go up and down, because that fader was after the noise assist in the block. So if you have a mixer or a DI box that can accept a USB control, see if something like the Korg Nano control might do it.
Alex?
Yeah, and Dave Brady suggests Angry Audio, which I thought is actually interesting. The mic drop gizmo from Angry Audio, and it's designed to be built into a It looks like it's designed to go into a desk, although you could probably build a little holder for it. But it's kind of designed to be a desk-mounted mute switch, and that one, just from the looks of it, could be a lot quieter than what we've been using in the past. I don't actually know what the price is on it. It's not as clear as I'd like it to be. But I bet you it's probably with a fairly reasonable price, and it'd be interesting to see there. Another suggestion was Mickey suggested the MX400 DP, which I think is a typically used, or let's see, it's a desktop base. I guess you could use it for. So here's what it looks like here. Hold on. So this is the desktop. This desktop base, and so you would have a mute switch there. So that'd be an interesting. I've not thought of using this one as this. It's really. Typically we would use these with a microphone here that goes up. It's a kind of a podium style mic, but it would have a nice one built into that. So that's kind of interesting. There was some suggestions about using the Stream Decks. I think that the only thing I'll say about Stream Decks is that the travel on the Stream Deck is not enough for me to do something that I really want to make sure is working. I know that I just feel like during a show, I know a lot of people use it and they're happy with it, but I find that it either doesn't tap or double taps more often than I'm comfortable with. I just want more travel. And by the way, the Angry Audio is $119. You probably still spend some more time or money on building a little cage for it, or you're going to need to drill it into your desk.
Yeah, and another option, this is not necessarily just a mute switch, but I really like the Roland UVC-02, which is it's basically an audio interface with an HDMI input on it. I'm just going to actually pull it up right here. And Dave, since you're in Canada here, this one's they're not cheap. They're $439. But the cool thing about it is that the mute button is a very quiet, soft button. And I've yet to find just a pass-through mute button that is soft. I've always wanted one with one of those soft jelly buttons. So maybe look at that. Of course, that would be replacing your UVC encoder there, but that is another option there. Next question.
Roberto Barrow again from Plymouth Meeting, Pennsylvania. What is the easiest way to fix a YouTube sync issue? The audio is way ahead of the video. Thanks.
Alex?
You got to download it. And so you got to download it, and then you're going to have to take it into your NLE. You'll detach the audio from the video and take it into an NLE and slide the audio forward until it lines up with the video. And that's a little bit subjective, unless you have some kind of measuring device before or after the show begins. You're not going to be able to. There's not going to be any other way to solve it. So if the audio is ahead, which is very typical. What really is a problem in processing is the audio behind. You're like, what happened? Now, I mean, we do see it, but it's very rare. But if the audio is ahead, which is very typical, you'll need to go take it down from there. You won't be able to keep the views that you already had, but take it down, put it in your NLE, separate the audio and video. And if you have a local record, obviously that's better because you won't double compress it. And then in the future, what you want to do is get something that has audio delay. A lot of our mixers have some version of an audio delay, but you can also get audio delay units, and you can then slide that audio. It's not uncommon for audio to be 120, 150 milliseconds off. So that's 4 to 5 frames is a pretty typical number when we're doing audio and video separately. The way you can avoid it also is to embed your audio into your camera or your switcher. So if the audio goes in before it's encoded into the computer, typically it'll stay in sync.
All right, next question.
And the next question from David Brady in New York, New York. On the subject of LED floors, last month at Nippon Budokan, concert in the round with integrated LED tiles across the 4 axes of the floor. Drones were used for imaging the arena.
Alex.
Yeah, here's the video that we were talking about here, and so you can see a lot of those. There's a lot you can do here. It's pretty slick. I think that as a there you go. I'm curious, like when you see the wide shots, I guess I find it curious of like how much you see as an audience of the stage, because it looks like, these look really cool when you have the drone shots, but when I see these wide ones, I'm kind of like, well, it's not from a performance perspective, let me see if I can get this back here. From a performance perspective, it feels a little dark. Like, I mean, I think the question is when you do these things, is it about the LEDs or about the people? And I think in this case, it's about the LEDs.
Courtney.
Yeah, and I question whether, it's Japan, so they may have different drone rules. They're not under FAA rules and regs there, whether they're actually flying drones or whether it's some type of Skycam, cable cam type arrangement. There are a lot of those for doing their imag. And I wouldn't think imag from a drone would be very good because it would be moving a lot and it would be disorienting for imag. But I would think they do. I did see in a couple of those shots a couple of real long jib arms, which you can do those big swings across over the top of the audio. So it makes it look kind of like a drone shot. So maybe that's what they're using, or maybe they're using cable cams. It'd be difficult to fly drones over the heads of people in the round. It'd be a little bit dangerous if they were any kind of heavy drones. Maybe they're lightweight.
Go ahead, CJ.
I'm a big fan of live concerts, and I think the LED popularization of LED floors as part of the stage, as that's becoming more and more common, it's exciting to see people get creative on how they're being used. I remember at the Eras tour, Taylor Swift had a big LED floor across everything, and they actually were pretty smart about it. They used pretty much digital spike tape where they gave her a little point on the floor to stomp, and then when she hits a certain part of the song and stomps on it, the whole stage cracked. And it was pretty impressive to see how the creative use of how do you give the actor a visual reference, but still make it a show for the people that are way up in the nosebleeds.
Next question.
Next question from Jason Robertshaw in Sarasota, Florida. Samsung TV with AirPlay in the back of the room. Samsung with AirPlay in the front. MacBook Air will not connect to the back, but not on the front. Will connect on the back, but not on the front. Same configuration on both, all on the same network. Partner's PC will screen connect to both.
Alex.
Yeah, I don't think that you can AirPlay to two devices at the same time. I just don't think that that's the way the Apple ecosystem works. If I had to do this, I would probably do some version of an Apple TV that was split, that had just split the two HDMIs and ran them to them. You might want to use the NDI tools. So there's the NDI player. You could probably send it over NDI to two Apple TVs. The other thing I would say is that I'll just go back to I would not use TVs for anything other than plugging hard HDMI into them. The circuitry in the TVs is just so bad, and I've had to deal with it a lot. And so they may seem convenient, but they are. When you start adding consumer TVs and start using the features inside the TVs, you are looking at black holes of time in your production pipeline, like that are just you're going to spend hours like noodling around with this rather than just finding a production solution for it that might be a little bit more expensive and might create a little more cables or might create a little bit more something. But if you're doing something for a presentation for folks, do not use consumer TVs, any of the features other than turn it on and get it to the most neutral color that you can get it to, and then plug in an HDMI and take over. But I would not use any of the features inside of a consumer TV ever for production, or even at home, to be honest.
Yeah, and also if you're going to be getting a media box like the Apple TV, as soon as you start dealing with multiple media boxes on a network, make sure you change and give each of them a unique name, because all of a sudden, if you've got 4 Apple TVs, they're all going to say living room, and it's going to be very confusing. Where are you sending that signal? Go ahead, CJ.
We replaced at my office all of the projectors in conference rooms with 85 to 100-inch TVs, and we don't want them connected to the internet, but we did want to be able to AirPlay to them. So we actually blocked their ability to access the internet at the router level, which still let AirPlay work, which was nice. But even then, we had intermittent success with connecting directly to the TVs. Eventually, we gave up and put an Apple TV behind every monitor, and now no more problems.
Courtney.
Yeah, it was Alexander pointed out one of the problems is identification. And if you have 2 TVs on the same network, they have to be named differently. And also the PC probably uses the Intel Miracast for connection, which uses a different set of protocols than the AirPlay. And most Samsung TVs support both AirPlay and Miracast. So that may be why the PC can connect to both and properly identifies one from the other. And maybe the AirPlay sees them both and just picks one because they're both named the same thing. But that could be the problem.
Go ahead, Alex.
And as you get to more monitors, you can also start thinking about multicasting. So a lot of times there might be a little bit of delay, but multicasting to these screens. If you're really doing them as presentations, the other thing is that any kind of wireless is going to have a little bit of delay in it. And if they're showing up there, if there's any kind of imag, if you're just showing slides, it's probably fine. But if you are doing anything that really needs to be timed, just note that any kind of wireless connection is going to slow that down.
Next question.
From Alexander Knight in Port Coquitlam, BC, Canada, what's a quality monitor that accepts various frame rates and fits in a rack kit for an ATEM Mini?
Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah. So what frame rates are you trying to? Well, I guess the question is, do you want the monitors to be rackable? Is the question.
That would be really nice. I need something that'll work with 2997, for example, because a lot of these PC monitors, 60 hertz, that's it, and they won't even turn on.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's one option is the Blackmagic dual. You have the two little dual screens that have the smart screens that are there. So you get two of them there. Now those are SDI inputs, so you would need to convert them if you're taking them out of there. So that's one option. A lot of people use, again, the Blackmagic. I believe Lilliput. Those little monitors will also handle a wide range of the relatively inexpensive Feel World. These are all very inexpensive ones that generally will work, and I believe that they'll handle most frame rates that you're trying to send them to. They're kind of like a very inexpensive production monitor, so not super durable. But I don't know how many. I haven't had a lot of Feel Worlds. I think I probably at one point owned almost 100 of the Lilliputs because we just used them for little service monitors all over the place. We didn't really use them for anything critical, but they were great to put clocks and things. And they just, you put 10 in a kit, and then you just have things popping up around. So I think that those are relatively, they're $200 each or something like that, or $250 or $150, somewhere in that range. They're not really going to go right into the rack. But as far as rack mounts, Marshall makes rack mounts, Blackmagic makes rack mounts, and those will give you a couple different options to throw those in, and those will screw right in. They'll be typically a 3U screw into your rack.
Great, Courtney.
Yeah, I use the Lilliputs, and I can show you here what they look like. They're rack mount, and the nice thing, I looked at I started with the Blackmagic, which have two up in their SDI in, but there are no controls in the Blackmagic. You have to use a software interface to control them. The Lilliputs have these buttons on the front, and they have much more versatile inputs. They have HDMI, SDI, and even RGB and composite input, which you can switch between on each monitor. And they're designed to rack mount to 5 inches, and they work quite well. They're not full 1080p resolution. Maybe these newer ones are. I bought mine. That was an RM7024 that I just showed from Lilliput. But I found them to be a lot better than the Blackmagic as far as versatility goes. And the neat thing is I have a rack that has composite video inputs, and I can switch between the SDI high def and composite all on one monitor, which I don't have to have multiple monitors for.
Great. It looks like Mickey in the chat also suggested Small HD, which I do recognize that name. Great. Next question.
From Paul Wallace in Hot Springs, Arkansas. Anyone have South by Southwest plans? I'm planning on playing the last day softball game and a barbecue picnic on March 16th. Conference is March 8th through the 16th.
Alex.
I have to admit that I don't really go to any conferences that I'm not speaking at. I have spoken about South by Southwest a couple of times, but that's the only time I've ever seen South by Southwest is when I'm actually been invited to talk. And so we did propose something. I think I was on a couple teams that proposed talks that didn't make it through the gauntlet of the gauntlet we don't understand, but we love and respect of getting onto the South by Southwest speaking crew. So yeah, I'm not planning to go right now just because of that.
Nigel.
I'm planning to open our balcony door and shout, "Get off my lawn," because I'm just on the edge of South by Southwest. So just please, Paul, don't make too much noise at nighttime because some of us have to sleep.
All right, next question.
Peter Junison from Sweden asks, looking at moving from a BPU battery to V-mounts for my run-and-gun Sony PMW-F3. Go for a power distributed plate or just V-lock plates and batteries with outputs?
Go ahead, Alex.
I would definitely get rid of the BPU. The BPU is what is typically what you would come with the camera, and those work fine. I mean, and that's where you all start. Talking about what kind of power distribution plate that you're going to use is a bit of a religious. We try to stay away from religion, but it is a religious conversation, and it usually revolves around the two religions one's called Anton Bauer, and the other one's called V-lock or V-mounts. So Anton Bauer, I will not dispute that Anton Bauer is a more secure connection for a battery onto your camera. So it's going to lock in a lot more tightly. I do find it to be less convenient. So most of my stuff is actually V-mount, and I'm not doing anything rugged enough to worry about it. If I lock it and pull up, I find that I've not lost a V-mount. If I just throw it down and close it and walk away, I have had one or two fall off over 15 years. But because I've had so little, but my brother and I talk about it a lot. He's definitely an Anton Bauer guy. So the Anton Bauer plates you might want to look at. What I really like about the new plates, and one of the reasons I got into the V-mount was because of the small rig has these. The mounts actually have USB and DTAP and everything else on them, so you can attach them, get them powered into the back of the camera, but then they are supplying other things that might need USB-C or might need a barrel, a 12-volt barrel, those kinds of things. And so I do really like those, and so that kind of moved me towards doing more and more with the V-mount. But do think about those. Those are your two options once you get past it, and I would highly recommend it. You have a lot more battery options once you get past the BPUs.
Yeah, and in the chat, Mickey recommends gold mounts. So the question is, how many Alex?
Anton Bauer gold mounts. I mean, gold mount is Anton Bauer. I think that those are I think we're referring to the same thing.
Next question.
Next question comes to us from Craig McFarland in Boston, Massachusetts. How does the LiDAR capability of the Apple Vision Pro compare to the iPhone 15? And could it become a better capture tool?
Alex?
I haven't compared the two. I'm going to guess that they are very close because that's a mass production. I think that I doubt that Apple would actually put different LiDAR in there. The only thing that I don't know is whether there's a dual LiDAR in the Apple in the Vision Pro, so I'm not clear of that. I haven't really done a lot where I tried to capture something. I did download, I think, Polycam. Just having trouble logging into it, because on my phone it just logs in because it was an app I downloaded, and now it's asking for some login. So I haven't tested it yet. But with both of them, I think that they're going to be good solutions, but not great solutions. I will say I hadn't used the Polycam room capture until last week, and I was at a place where we're building a home insert studio for somebody. So and I started scanning, and it just finds the corners, and it just finds all the stuff that's there, and builds a very nice clean room to lay out. I was very impressed. So I would look at Polyscan Polycam. And take a look at it. And it's available on both. So we'll try to do head-to-head in the near future.
All right. Coming up soon, we've got another great hour to answer your technical questions and a great panel here. So make sure you get those questions in and vote on them, because that tells us what the level of importance is for those questions. Also, just a reminder, after the show, stick around if you're interested in learning on how to become a volunteer and join our great community. We got that coming up right after the show. And we are going to transition just momentarily here. And welcome back to the second hour. What's our next question, CJ?
James Haldane from Vancouver, Canada. What cost-effective substitute for an Intel NUC is recommended for a sturdy mini PC that can handle 3 monitors, ideally furnished with at least 2 regular-sized HDMI ports, eliminating the need for dongles?
Courtney?
Well, you know what I'm going to recommend? The old Melee Quieter 4, which is actually a new Quieter 4. This is the one, newest one out. It has the N100 processor in it. You can see it has your two HDMI full size and that USB-C that's on the left of the analog audio port there. Also supports a video output, so you have 3 video outputs for 3 monitors there. It does have USB 3 and 2 USB 3 Type A ports and 1 USB 2 Type A ports on there. So it's got plenty of ports. Also, your networking port is down there, and it has USB-C input for power. So I'd suggest that. They're pretty cheap these days. I think that one was with the coupon. It used to be a $50. Now it's a $30. I'd get the 16 gigabyte version. Depends on what you want to do with it. The 16 gigabyte will actually run a full version of Resolve. Or at least the free downloadable version of Resolve from Blackmagic. You can get them in the 32 gigabyte version as well for under, well, $329. It jumps up when you double the RAM. $329 with a $70 coupon off. So actually about $298 or 280 something bucks for the 32 gigabyte version with 512 gigabytes of SSD in it, and you can fit an NVMe drive in there. You take the top off, and you can slot a full-length 2280 NVMe SSD in there, up to 4 terabytes, I believe. So you can stick 4 terabytes in that little brick. It has no fans. It's completely silent, and they run pretty good. I've been running Resolve on that one for several days now, and it's still up and running.
All right, and Alex?
What Courtney said.
All right, CJ.
And having just picked up one of these Melees to use as a little appliance, I didn't realize that you could actually drive 3 monitors with it. I know there's 2 HDMI ports, but then you can do another on top of that. Have you done that, Courtney?
Sorry, I need that mute button. Yes, you can. Though if you're trying to run 360s, it's going to tax the system quite a bit. If you're running 1080p's, it should not be a problem. But yes, it will support 3 monitors simultaneously. It comes with Windows 11 Pro on it. So, and Windows 11 will support 3 monitors out of the box. Unlike
all right, well,
Mac
I guess
only support 2.
I guess I'm going to have to give my MacBook Air to the side when I need to run 3 monitors. Pull out my Melee.
Next question.
Sorry, next question from Paul Wallace in Hot Springs, Arkansas. Will we have to be agile about where to watch the eclipse depending on the weather? And is there any consensus on what places along the path to watch? For example, Hot Springs, Arkansas, Kerrville, Texas, Killeen, Texas, etc.
Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, we're still working on it. So I think the most important thing right now is we think we have a couple options that are in those areas. I think that if one of those is covered with clouds, we're probably going to have them all covered with clouds. I think one of the reasons we're looking at Killeen and Kernville is because they are statistically the highest chance of a clear sky. So we're going to have to take our chances. We're going to take a bunch of stuff down there. We're going to pack up, and it'll either be an amazing experience or a great party. And we're not sure which, and so we'll let you all know, but should be fun.
Next question.
Craig McFarlane in Boston, Massachusetts. What is the latest on the Office Hours video audio sync measurement tool?
Alex.
I think Juan's working on it right now. It's a tricky thing to try to get it as precise as we want, and what we're trying to do is make it something that is something anybody could use. You could just point your phone at the screen, and it will give you a readout of what the difference is between the audio and the video, and we think we have a unique way of doing that. And so we're working on it. It's just it's a very simplistic way to approach this, and I know that Juan's been working on it. I'm not sure where he is on that, but we'll give you an update when we get a little closer.
All right, next question.
Eric Strand from Essex, Connecticut, referencing the monitor question a few minutes ago. Anyone try the low-end ones like FieldWorld, Lilliput, Andy Cine? They all seem to be the same brands, just rebranded and rehoused. I'm sure it's a get what you pay for situation. Thanks.
Go ahead, Courtney.
Well, the one that I showed, the Lilliput, I've been using for a number of years. And Lilliput is coming out with a lot of new monitors. I think they do make their own monitors. They may use a panel from Samsung or somebody, or from LG or Samsung. But the interface boards, I think, are designed and built by them. They're the only ones. I like the Lilliputs because they have the variety of inputs on them, and they have front panel controls, which I think the problem is the Blackmagic ones, which are actually more expensive, don't. And you can adjust brightness, contrast, those things. Sometimes you got to do that. And the ability to switch between inputs. I've got computers going into some with VGA inputs and SDI inputs at the same time on the same monitor. You can switch back and forth between different inputs. So it's like, having 3 monitors in one, since it has those inputs are all individually switchable on each individual monitor. So that's a really good thing to have. And I found them to hold up. They're not super. The new ones do have 1920 by 1080 native resolution on them, so they are at least that resolution on the 5-inch or 7-inch monitors that are built into the rack. And they do make full-size 15-inch monitors as well for rack mounting with SDI and or HDMI inputs on them. So I take a look at them, and they're reasonably priced. They're probably a little bit cheaper, quite a bit cheaper than the Blackmagics.
Alex.
And also keep in mind, just always look for Visa mounts and quarter 20s. So beyond what can it handle and what is the quality and everything else, a couple things you want to look at is brightness. So how many nits is it going to put out? Number 2 is what's the actual display resolution. So that may be able to accept a 4K signal, but it might be only 1280, 720 by 1280. So you look at what the actual resolution of the monitor is, and then look at the mounts and also finally whether it's going to accept batteries on the back. Sometimes they do, and you got to decide whether you need that or not. I almost never use batteries on my monitors, but you can. But the thing that's really nice is if there's quarter 20s. The big thing that we found that was useful is if there are quarter 20s on both sides of the monitor, and almost none of them have this. But if you have quarter 20s on both sides of the monitor, you can build really nice you can print little teleprompters that you can attach to either side. You just attach these 2 little pieces of plastic on either side and then slide a piece of glass into it. And you can pack that up into almost nothing and have like a little teleprompter that you put in front of the camera if you want to. So that's something to look for as well, if it's possible. And almost, again, very rare. If they're designed to be on a hinge, sometimes they've got a quarter 20 that's built into that.
Go ahead, Courtney.
One other thing I didn't mention is a lot of a little bit as a whole line of monitors are designed for rack mount, and they also have some like this 10-inch touchscreen. So they have touch input, multi-touch. So that's very handy to have if you're using Windows or a touch-operated operating system on them, so that you can use them as a touchscreens as well. So it's another consideration.
Next question.
Greg McFarland from Boston, Massachusetts. I'm close to buying a tiny wide monitor, smaller than a standard keyboard, to use for status and monitoring. Is anyone else using one of these on their desk?
Alex.
Bo got us into it, and then I bought one, and it's still sitting over there. I keep on thinking about it. It does show up. The Mac will see it. The Mac will show it. PCs, I'm sure, will show it as well. So that it's there, and it figures out what that monitor is, and I kind of need to rebuild what I have here to find a place for it. So that's what's holding it all up.
All right, next question.
John Iddleston from Monterey. Has anyone found an easy way to flip the image of an iPad for use in a teleprompter?
Nigel.
Some of the teleprompter software will do it for you. So I think Prompter Pro or some of those things will automatically flip that if you go onto an iPad. But if you want to use it as an Interrotron, then I haven't found a way of doing that. So I ended up buying a cheap 10-inch monitor, which I then couldn't flip around. So I bought a decimator. So it was probably cheaper to have started somewhere else.
Alex.
Yeah, and the Lilliput, if you're trying to do it with the iPad, especially, I'm going to guess that John's trying to do it with like something like Zoom internally so that you can see it. And that's going to be pretty hard to get that to work correctly. I don't know of any way you don't really have monitor controls over it. So if you're trying to do it all internal inside the iPad, I don't think that there's a good way to do that. External, you can, of course, Lilliputs will do that flip that you need. Software will flip it from the external. You could also put it through a decimator, flip it, and then put it into either a monitor, or you could go HDMI to USB-C if you really want to use your iPad. and then you could flip it before it gets there and then put it in there. So those are a couple different ways to do it. None of them are probably what you want, but those are the ones that we know of.
CJ.
John, it's kludgy as all get out, but I, up until this week, was using an iPad as an Interatron and a teleprompter monitor. And the way that I got it to work was I downloaded a utility recommended by Jeffrey Powers, Better Display, which actually, that in conjunction with Duet, allowed me to mirror or stream, they call it stream, one of the other displays to the iPad, and then it had the controls to do the horizontal flip. Not as rock solid as I would have liked. If it was anybody but just me in this room, I wouldn't recommend it. But I eventually wanted a bigger teleprompter, so the iPad is no more.
Courtney?
Probably not good for a teleprompter because it's not big enough. I just got I'm testing it now, this new Viltronic. It has a nice flip-out lens shade, which is removable. But it's 1200 nits. It does have horizontal flip built into it. It takes HDMI input. It's 1920 by 1080. Has HDMI in and HDMI out. It has complete meters on it, and it's battery powered as well. It has a Sony in battery connection on the back, as well as DC input from a coaxial DC 12 volts or 5 volts DC coming in over USB-C. So it might be good for a teleprompter. I haven't tried it for that. It does have downloadable LUTs if you're using it for a camera monitor. It's designed as it's a touch screen, so it's designed as a camera, top of camera mounted viewfinder monitor because it has all the fun things for focus assist and false color and scopes and everything else. But if you're talking about flipping the image on an iPad, a thing to worry about there is if you have a teleprompter operator and you flip the image and that's the only way you're going to see that image is flipped. And so the operator is going to have to learn how to read text backwards if it's not you in front of the camera. So only iPad teleprompters are only good really for people that are reading in front of the camera operating the teleprompter. There is some software out there that will sync your iPhone to your iPad and let you scroll on the iPhone and flip the image on the iPad. So that's one way of doing it. Some of the professional prompter software that supports iPads will do that for you. So you might look into that. It's a little bit pricey when you get into that range of software and not very professional.
All right. Well, and there you go. Another Saturday of Q&A. Finished a little early, but that's okay because this show's driven by your questions. Thanks very much to the producers for putting those questions in. We really appreciate it. We wouldn't have a show without you. And thanks, of course, to the incredible back-end crew who shows up here every single day, waking up early to make sure all the bits and pieces and all this amazing technology works great, and also to make sure that we all look and sound great. So thanks very much to those people. And, of course, if you'd like to be part of this community, remember, you can always go to officehours.global, sign up for the newsletter, and join there. Coming up here just after the show, we've got our volunteer meeting. So if you're interested in being part of the community and learning how you can contribute, please stick around for that. That starts, I believe, at 9 o'clock. Well, that's it. We'll see you next time.
I think we missed the Tall-Lock traversal. Where's the Tall-Lock traversal?
62,000 miles, 100,000 kilometers, 494 million.
Bananas for scale.
Alex,
Good start,
you
Alex.
Switched your mic out today.
It's good to have you.
Ahead.
Good to have you on the show.
Thanks.
Good to have you
I need a
hosting.
little more practice.
That's what Saturdays are for.
so many more buttons to click.
I know it takes
cognitive load. Something
exactly.
about cognitive load.
Exactly. No, it's great. That's the challenge is to do it, and you just the only way to figure it out, the only way to get your that cognitive load down is just to do it over and over again. So hopefully we'll see you more.
Absolutely.
It's great to have you.
I'll be back.
Excellent. All right. See you, everybody.
Bye.